All right, very good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone feeling after the break? Good. So I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes to talk about a very interesting topic. And this is an area that is very fundamental to a lot of enterprises today who want to embark on this journey around digital transformation. They want to make sure that they stay relevant in business, and they want to ensure that they are able to change their business model today so they're able to capitalize on all these new business opportunities are out there in the market. And at Red Hat we believe that one of the fundamental pieces of the puzzle is nothing but integration. Everyone is talking about providing a digital experience to your customers, to your various stakeholders, and you can't run away from integration. It is very important. Think about this. Today, we have a lot of customers who have interactions with various stakeholders, and this could be their suppliers, this could be their partners, and they exchange a lot of information between these suppliers. And this forms their ecosystem of stakeholders that they interact with. And what they want to do is they want to collaborate in new ways. They want to be able to create new business models and create new services for their end users, for their customers. And today they're able to do that. Exchanging information is possible, but one of the challenges that they face is that there is no standardization. So what this means is that while it is possible, you can't do it very quickly. Agility is missing. And one of the new terms that is coming up into the market these days, API economy. Have you come across this term called API economy? Has anyone come across it? I see someone in the back. So API economy basically is the process of your customers, suppliers, and partners exposing the data, the information, in the form of a standardized construct called an API, such that when you expose these APIs, your third-party stakeholders can create new business models, new services out of these APIs that they are exposing. And APIs are very, very important if you want to go and ride this wave of digital transformation, because APIs allow you to collaborate much more better and easier because of the standardized way that they have been written in. So API, if you have done some level of programming, it actually stands for Application Programming Interface. But in this case, it's really a business construct, a business contract that defines what information I'm sharing with you and how do you access this information from me. And if I make this API available to you, you can then use it to create your own applications. A lot of the applications that we see today, they make use of APIs from Google, APIs from Amazon, APIs from an organization called CETA that provides you with all the airline-related APIs. And a lot of the developers out there are creating new applications based on these APIs that have been exposed. So what this means is that the ecosystem really becomes very vibrant with these APIs that you expose, and it allows you to come out with new business models very quickly and very easily. And at Red Hat, we believe that in order to be successful in digital transformation, you need to have a connected enterprise. And by connected enterprise, what we mean is that there is a consistent connection of information across people, processes, applications, devices, APIs, whether they are in remote branches, whether they are on the cloud, the public cloud or private cloud. Eventually, you need to be able to connect the physical world with the digital world if you want to be successful in providing a digital experience to your customers. And what do you need to have such a connected enterprise? You basically need a next generation integration and API platform. And I'd like to stress the word next generation, because today there are a lot of solutions available that does integration. But the next generation problems are very different, and the characteristics are very different. Next generation architectures are very modular in nature, very adaptable. They can be used for multiple purposes. They are very, very lightweight in nature, very flexible, using having a very low footprint and using very low resources. And it makes sense because when you talk about cloud architectures, when you talk about applications on the cloud that are going to be used by millions of users, it makes sense to have an underlying architecture that is very lightweight. Connectivity is very key, being able to connect to not just your traditional data sources, but also new data sources, big data sources, social data sources, as well as data that is coming from IoT, and maybe in the future from all these small sensors that you have. And cloud enabled, it's a given. Integration applications that you write today have to be designed for the cloud. It just can't run purely on premise. You need to provide this flexibility of deployment choice, which could be a cloud, a private cloud, a public cloud, or a hybrid cloud, but it has to be there. And we have at Red Hat such a next generation integration and API management platform that allows enterprises to be connected so that they are able to create an environment where APIs can be developed and managed and shared to create new business models and new business value. And we have a couple of solutions for developing your APIs. So the API development is very key, and the technologies that you see here, such as Red Hat JBoss AMQ, which is a messaging platform, JBoss Fuse, which is an integration platform, and data virtualization, which is a data integration platform. These platforms allow you to create your service, which can be exposed as an API. So that is step one of the whole process of having an API economy. And the step two is, once you have created all these services that are exposed using API interfaces, how do you manage them? Management is very important. And I'm going to talk shortly about what this whole idea about API management involves. So we have a solution there. It's called 3Scale. It's a company that we actually acquired 2 months ago. Very new acquisition, but we have partnered with them for the past 2 years. And 3Scale helps us achieve the API management portion of API economy. Today when you talk about integration of the 21st century is very different from what we used to do like 10 years ago. Integration of today. Today a lot of people are using open source technology to do integration, and one of the so-called de facto integration standard out there in the market is Apache Camel. Can I have a show of hands if you have heard of Camel or are using it for your application development? I see some hands over there. So Camel is an integration platform, and why it is so popular, it's because it gives you a lot of these enterprise integration patterns. So if you are doing enterprise integration, some of the common things you'll be doing is, how do you aggregate a message, transform a message, split a message? Instead of using proprietary way of doing this, Camel provides you all the enterprise integration pattern implementations. And it is a very vibrant community. There are a lot of developers there. A lot of the engineers from Red Hat also commit code to Camel. And we have a lot of great references of customers who are using Camel in the production environment. And how are these customers using Camel? Well, Camel is actually implemented as part of our integration platform called JBoss Fuse. So JBoss Fuse includes Apache Camel. And what you get with JBoss Fuse is also broad connectivity. Today, what is the very important thing about integration platforms? Being able to integrate and creating services is important, But more than that, connectors. Connectors are very important. Connectors that help you talk easily out of the box with, let's say, Facebook, with Twitter, with PayPal, or with new sources of data like ServiceNow, or Adobe, or Swagger, or Apache Spark. You get all these connectors out of the box, which means you don't need to do programming, which means you can develop all this connectivity very quickly. Now, JBoss Fuse also includes a messaging component, which is also very critical when you do integration, which is JBoss AMQ, based on the ActiveMQ community project, that allows you to do all your messaging, solve all your messaging problems. Now, JBoss Fuse is our foundation for developing your APIs. So it helps you create all these APIs, which can then be exposed through the 3Scale API management platform. And the greatest news today is that it is lightweight and ready for the cloud today. So JBoss has, Red Hat has an offering, a container offering called the OpenShift Container Platform. JBoss Fuse today can run on the OpenShift Container Platform very easily through something known as the Fuse Integration Services. And OpenShift is basically a platform as a service. So what this means is that if you have JBoss Fuse, you can run it on-premise or you can run it on the cloud. You don't need to change anything because you can deploy JBoss Fuse on OpenShift, which can run on any type of cloud environments. So what this means for you is you are using technology today that is designed for tomorrow. Now, JBoss AMQ is the lightweight messaging platform that does all your standard enterprise messaging types of functions. And it supports all the various standards you see here. For those of you who have done messaging projects before, this should not be something that is very new. So compliance to JMS specifications, supporting all the new protocols such as AMQP, Storm, MQTT. Some of these are very useful for IoT type of devices. Asynchronous communications, which is a hallmark, which is something which is very common to messaging solutions. Aggregating and integrating IoT data. So today a lot of people are developing IoT solutions, connecting to sensors, getting information, and AMQ allows you to do that very easily. And like JBoss Fuse, it is lightweight, ready for the cloud. So you can run it on OpenShift, container platform, and there you have it. You have a solution that is able to run on the cloud or on-premise. Now, JBoss Fuse is being used by a lot of our customers, and IDC did an ROI study with some of our large customers. And what the survey or the study actually revealed is that JBoss Fuse delivers an average 3-year ROI of almost 500% and a payback time of just 8 months. All right, so great returns. And the survey also found that developers are able to have 51% or 50% more applications integrated every year. So they are able to do all their integration faster. You need lesser developers to do it because it's not a complicated heavyweight product. It's very simple. And because a lot of things are provided to you out of the box, like enterprise integration patterns and connectors, you need less developers to do the entire integration. And obviously, because it's open source, it's a very cost-effective solution. It is also, JBoss Fuse is also regarded very highly by the analysts, and Forrester, in its hybrid to integration wave, placed it in the leaders quadrant. So it's one of those open source products that is also very highly regarded by the analysts. Now, if you take a look at all the solutions that I was talking about and put it in context with what I mentioned when I talked about enterprises being able to talk to all the various stakeholders. And this could be, in this case, your partners, your cloud providers, your social networks, your devices, which are also sending you information, your applications, your traditional backend databases. All this requires exchange of information. And probably the way that you're going to exchange this information is to create a service that allows you to talk to, let's say, your partners, your SaaS services, And you'll use a solution like JBoss Fuse to create all these services. But then you also need to ensure that it is done in a standards-based manner. And that is where APIs become very, very important. So what you want to do is you want to have an API interface to all the external stakeholders that you are going to interact with. And when it's defined as an API, it's standards-based, and you can manage all these APIs very easily. So what it allows you to do is agility in terms of connectivity with all your stakeholders. And when you have agility, you're able to come out with new capabilities and new innovation much faster. So connecting everything and everywhere using APIs is something that a lot of organizations want to do today. Now, APIs are nice to have, but really if you look at APIs in a real production environment, then things tend to get a bit complicated. So what you see here, it's a bit small, but really what you see here are microservices, okay? I like to use the terms microservices or services in the same way, but these are microservices. This is a group of microservices containing other microservices. And this could be a microservice that is created using JBoss Fuse, for example. And then you have another microservice here, another one here, another one here. So what you don't want to do is, you don't want to talk to, the consumer should not talk directly, okay? Talking to microservice directly is not good. What we want to do is, we create an API layer, all right? So that we invoke it using the APIs instead of calling the service directly. All right, and you may also have a layer to aggregate these APIs, to combine all these APIs to create another API. So your consumers, which means your stakeholders or your mobile apps, will be talking not directly, they'll be talking to the API interface. Okay, so they'll be communicating using APIs. And there can be a lot of different types of APIs. There can be internal APIs, which have sensitive information that can be used within the organization only, or external APIs. All right. Now, things get a bit complicated because of some of these challenges. How do you ensure that people who are accessing your APIs are verified, are authenticated? How do you ensure security and access control? How do you define who can access it and what's the rate at which they access it, the number of calls that are coming in? And you of course want to know who is calling my APIs, get some analytics reports, and have a way to share your API documentation with your development teams so that they know how to actually exchange information. These are some of the challenges, and when you have a lot of APIs, when everyone is invoking all the APIs, you need to have a way to manage them. And this is where Red Hat proposes that you use the three-scale API management solution to do the entire process of managing your APIs. And this is a very neat solution, an elegant solution. So what you have here, you have all your enterprise systems, and these systems contain all the information that you will need when you're developing your apps. Obviously, you don't want to access them directly, so you access them through something like JBoss Fuse. It could be other products in the JBoss portfolio, but let's say you access it using JBoss Fuse, and you create a service API. So the service API is created using Fuse and talking to one of these data sources in the backend. Now, normally what will happen is these are your API customers. Your API customers talks directly. But no, we don't want to do that. We want to have a management layer here. So all of these customers needs to go to the API management platform where you will have all these features that will be run before you can actually go in. So it's like a gateway, and it controls who can go in, who cannot go in, and a lot of other things. So to truly use APIs in a production environment, you need to do two things. You need to, first of all, provide the APIs, develop the APIs, and you need a next-gen solution like JBoss Fuse. And you then also need to know how to manage the APIs through a next-gen platform like 3Scale. So let me spend a couple of minutes going through some of the features that the 3Scale API management provides. So access control and security is very important. Essentially, you want to authenticate and restrict access to your APIs so that your backend services are protected. And you have multiple ways of doing this. So when I want to access the API, maybe I can pass an API key to say that, okay, this is a valid key and I can access the information. Or I can also go by app ID and app key. So this is the app and I can access this app. Or I can use standards like OAuth 2. Now I can also do something like a domain referrer whitelisting, so I can blacklist all the IP addresses. So if a API request comes from this IP address, the gateway will block it. So the function of the access control and security is basically to authenticate the traffic. You can restrict what type of requests are coming in. You can also drop some of the calls, generate some alerts if a lot of APIs are coming in. And this is, ensures that your environment is properly managed and properly governed. The other very useful thing that ties in very neatly with this whole idea of having an API economy is this idea of defining API contracts and rate limits. It also ties in with something known as monetization. So I have an API, you need my API, but you need to pay me. So you make one call, maybe you pay like 10 cents or 1,000 won, for example, to use my API. Because it's a very important information. I don't want to give it to you for free. So a customer can actually define all these API contracts, and they can create different packages. So they can say, okay, this is my package number 2. Package 2, what is package 2? Okay, package 2 allows you to have a total of 2 APIs. You can make 10 calls in 1 minute, a total of 100 calls per day, and I will charge you maybe $100 per month. And that is package 2. So I can sign up with your package, and then for every call, I have like this many calls that I can make in this package, and this is how much I need to pay. So this is called monetization. So I share with you important APIs, but you have to pay me something. And this becomes a new business model. Obviously, not every time you want to do that. If it's internal teams, you don't want to do that, but you can define rate limits, but it opens up a whole new avenue for doing additional business. Now, analytics and reporting, if you are the customer who have developed your APIs, you will be very interested to know who is using your API, who are your top API consumers, and what are the traffic patterns. When is traffic very high, when is it low, and be alerted. So how do you generate reports? We have some things out of the box that allow you to get all this metric information. Developer and partner portal. One of the things about APIs that allow it to be very interesting, in usage and in concept, is that what it does is very simple. It just provides, you send it some information and it gives you a response. But if I'm the developer and I'm trying to talk to your API, I'll still need to have I need to know additional information about this API. So what you get here is, as a customer, if I have 10 APIs, I can create my own API developer portal, put all my APIs there, and automatically the documentation will be created. And the documentation is based on this specification called Swagger. So what you get in the documentation, which is useful for developers, is what parameters you send, what parameters you get back. You can also add additional documentation, like how much it will cost if it's a paid API. And this is all interactive documentation. And you can create your own API design. So all this background and the themes, you can put your own company logo, you can do whatever you want. This becomes your self-service developer portal. Now, in an ideal scenario, what will happen is, you have a lot of APIs, somebody wants to use your API, They go to your portal, they download the documentation, they sign up for your API, they make payment, and they start using. They don't give you a telephone call or email you. So it's all done independently, without people even contacting the people who develop the APIs. And that allows you to have the agility. I need to have all the information so that I can start the development easily and quickly. Developer and partner portal allows you to do that, and billing and payments is the other aspect that allows you to do that. So if I'm charging for my APIs, how do I quickly enable payments? So 3Scale has very good integration with some of the payment processing networks, and you can do automatic invoicing. So from the developer portal, you can specify your credit card details and sign up for one of the contracts, and there you are able to start using the APIs. So billing and payments is a capability that allows you to do all the fulfillment for the contracts that you have signed up with. Now, at a technical level, how does this solution actually work? So the 3Scale API management platform consists of two main things, all right? You have something known as, number one, the API program management, which is the cloud. So that is this box here, okay? And this is today it is running on the public cloud. Now what this allows you to do is to set up all the configuration that I talked to you about just now. So this is where you define your policies, your billing. This is where you define your alerts. This is where you do your analytics. This is where you have your developer portal, your documentation, everything happens here. So you can define all the API management policies here. But where does the policies actually run? Once you have defined it here, you publish it to the gateway. So this is where it actually runs. All right, so at runtime what happens is you have all your API consumers. You have your mobile, IoT devices, and your apps. The apps will go to the gateway. The gateway will execute all the policies like access control and security that you have published here. If it's okay, it will allow you to access your APIs. So this is what we call the traffic control layer. It determines, can I access or can I not access? Or how many times or how much must I pay? Everything happens here at runtime. And you can also use some custom code plugins to do some advanced level of traffic control. Now, this piece here, the gateway, is what we call as the API traffic control. And you can run it today on the public cloud or you can run it on-premise. So some of the customers, they have strict requirements. Data that is exposed here by the APIs, and if they want to use it internally, cannot go into the cloud. So that is okay, it's not going into the cloud. You can host this gateway within your organization, so it is internal. What is external is where you define all these rules. So you define all these rules and you publish all these policies to the gateway, and when it is running, it's running internally in the cloud. Now today what we have is something known as the 3Scale hybrid cloud model. So this means that you can actually deploy the gateway. The gateway can be deployed on Red Hat OpenShift container platform, and OpenShift can be deployed on-premise today. So you can do that. So API consumer connects to the API gateway running on the Red Hat OpenShift container platform, and the API gateway is connected to all the backend API providers. The API management piece is still on the cloud. So Red Hat has a plan, over the next year, we will have this solution on premise as well. So by next year, we'll have everything running on premise, on OpenShift. OpenShift is not the only place that you can run. You can also run on other cloud providers. So I want to share one success story. This is very recent. If you see, it was published on 7th of September 2016. And this is about a customer called Flytoget. It's based out of Norway. And this story is about, so Flytoget is actually a high-speed rail. It connects you from the Oslo airport to the city, and you use a train to do that. So they have been running for a long time, and one of their challenges was the integration platform that they were using was very outdated. And they wanted to have a modern integration platform. They also wanted to come out with new business apps and have a mobile offering, but they were not able to do that. So they actually used Red Hat JBoss fused together with 3Scale. And what actually they were able to do is, they were able to do all this integration much better, easier, using a lightweight platform. And all this API, and they used 3Scale to expose APIs. Now when they were, after they were able to expose the APIs, they are able to then have the mobile devices connect easily to all your backend information. And number two, they were also able to promote collaborative innovation to external parties. So they make these APIs available to external parties who develop new applications. And these new applications could be things like, when is the next train coming? How long will it take to get from this point to this point? So all these new things were made possible because they were able to expose these APIs, and that allowed innovation to happen. So this is an example of how you can use next-gen integration and API management platform to do continuous innovation. Now, it's a long journey. We know that, to embark on this journey, it's not easy, and that is why Red Hat has its consulting arm that can actually guide you on this journey to providing digital experience for your customers through assets such as accelerators such as discovery sessions, workshops, and also supporting you on your implementation. And we have a lot of experienced consultants and solution architects even in Red Hat Korea office to help you do that. So in summary, digital experience is very key. You got to do that. And in order to do that, you have got to have a strategy around next generation integration and API management platform. And Red Hat JBoss Fuse and 3Scale API management actually allows you to do that very effectively. And thank you very much.